what is Cowboys fans' takeaway about Dalton Schultz? Because right when we were talking about it earlier, we talked about it for like 2 minutes and then the Aaron Rodgers news broke. Is how do Cowboys fans feel about this? How do you guys feel about this right now? Franchise tag, 1 year, $10.931 million, with rumblings that they're going to do a long-term extension. I'm not sure I think that is going to happen.
I want to know who had the most significant voice on this and what they were saying. I want to know if Mike McCarthy was like, look, we don't need Amari Cooper. As a matter of fact, Mike McCarthy's in there and he's like, I think he's a detriment. And I don't know if that's the case. And he would never do something like that because Mike McCarthy is a player's coach and wants players to like him, and players do like him because of the way he actually cares about their bodies. He does, take a lot of interest in that. But I do wonder, did Kellen Moore walk in and he was like, look, we don't need Amari. Dalton can be more of a focal point for our offense. We want to raise the level of what we do with CeeDee Lamb. We can actually be a more efficient offense if we bring back Dalton and don't bring back Amari. Who was the voice?
I think it's mostly Steven. And here's why. 2019, that last game that you didn't make the playoffs, or I guess the Washington game was the last game, the second to last game where you didn't make the playoffs against Philadelphia, he was a non-factor. All those coaches are gone, so they wouldn't have a say. But I think they were really disappointed with 2019 Amari Cooper when they felt like he needed to step up, right? I mean, they were like, just go sit on the bench. You're not good enough to be out here right now. So, but all those guys got fired, and then Mike McCarthy comes in. And then I think probably that left a lasting impression on Steven and maybe even Jerry. And then now you're paying him $20 million. I think they were disappointed from what I read about the COVID situation that he didn't get the shot, so he had to miss another extra game.
I just heard that too, yeah.
And so that adds on to it. And then when you look at his overall stats, and he was not in the top 30 for somewhat major categories, catches and yards, I think they probably looked at it, and I think Amari Cooper can go somewhere else and be a good wide receiver. But I think that maybe he just wasn't the most liked guy, and then they maybe want to elevate CeeDee Lamb into he's the number one. So do we want to pay $20 million to our number two?
It does kind of revert back to the draft and pay your guys. I know they did pay Amari, but it does looking down the road, Kevin. We talked with Steven multiple times, and how often did he bring up Michael Gallup, and we're going to have to take a look at his contract, and then he'd tag in on the very end of that. And don't forget about CeeDee Lamb, that'll be there soon. So they're thinking 2-3 years ahead on all this to try and save money. But they're spending on Dalton Schultz. If Dalton Schultz gets more targets and becomes more productive, I don't care about the money.
Yeah.
At the moment, I'm okay, he got a big bump. A huge bump for a guy that was just part of the offense.
Yeah. And
so that's kind of where I stand on it. But also, if it is just a placeholder, I'm trying to figure out where that stands.
I don't know if I believe that's the case. We'll talk with Bobby at 120, and I know the rumblings of that. I don't necessarily think that is the case.
I don't either. It feels like they want him to be around because they want to move on from Jarwin's situation.
And I get it. And I've seen people who are going after Schultz for the lack of blocking and stuff. I would just say welcome to the modern tight end. But last year, nobody thought Dalton Schultz was going to be an intricate part, and then it was forced upon him. 63 catches, 615 yards, and 4 touchdowns. This year, we went into it probably thinking he would have a bigger role. Jumped from 63 to 78 catches, 600 to 800 yards, 4 touchdowns to 8 touchdowns. He's 25. I get he'll turn 26 before the season starts, but I don't think we should automatically rule out that he is not showing you his development right there, which is one of the hopes of Cedric Wilson as well. When you see the gigantic jump in production because of how much they used him from year 2 to year 3, or I guess technically year 3 to year 4, is you might see the development of these players. Players get better around this time. And so you could be seeing the development of Cedric Wilson, which might have priced him out of your range, and the development of Dalton Schultz, which might have been why they might have looked at this and said, we have to make a decision. we can keep one of these players. And I always thought it was Amari or Gallup and Wilson, but it might have, in a way, end up being Wilson or Schultz.
So you're prepared to say that Dalton Schultz will be the next Travis Kelce. That's what I'm hearing.
I mean, I don't think
now.
he's ever going to be that type
You said he's going to develop.
But like, maybe not that explosive level, but if you take a look, let's say if he makes the exact same jump next year, you know where he'll be at? 93 catches for 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns. I think we'd all be like freaking pumped about that.
Okay. All right. How much, because I think we kind of lightly talked about this. How much do you think Dak had input on this?
I do. It's tough to say the specifics, but I absolutely do. Like, and I heard Nosebleeds this morning with RJ, and I totally get what they're saying. You can replace the production, but that's like on a spreadsheet, right? Mm-hmm. If you tell your quarterback, I can replace the production, and he says, I want this guy, I wonder how those conversations go. So I do think he had something to say about that.
Did you see what Dawson tweeted about Dalton Schultz?
I did not.
So here's the other side.
He does not support this.
He doesn't beat one-on-one coverage. He doesn't break tackles.
He benefits from
He
the
doesn't
offense.
block. And all he does is he finds little spots in zones to be an outlet or something for Dak. Now,
which is an exceptional
I need
ability,
to find
by the
his
way.
exact tweet, but that's where I think the criticism's coming from, Kevin. And I know you're coming from the stats. I want to look at the numbers and tell you the stats are top 5 in the NFL.
And if I could just speak to one of those specifically, he was top 5 in broken tackles in tight end category.
Okay.
So when you say he doesn't break tackles, I mean, literally this last year, he was top 5. So I don't
What
know.
about broken tackle efficiency, Kevin? What about broken tackle?
Okay.
Maybe he can't. I don't know.
It is true. I have not done the research.
So I don't want to
on that.
misquote Gavin Dawson. I found it. Schultz can't block, evade tacklers, or exploit one-on-one coverage, but he's somehow more important than Tank and Coop. Ladies and gents, how can you believe in this football team? Also, what the F?
I mean, and I get it. I do. My counterpoint would be he was top 6 in lowest drop rate, contested catch rate when we were talking about not beating defenders, and most broken tackles. So, like, I hear what you're saying. The numbers say, and that doesn't mean that I want to pay him a long-term deal that's $12 million a year. I just am trying to tell you, when the Cowboys are keeping him, this is the reason why. But we've seen this is exactly what the Cowboys thought about DeMarcus Lawrence, about Amari Cooper, like about Zeke, about Dak, about any number of contracts you can say, and then you sit there 2 years into it and you're like, well, I don't like this deal.
Yeah.